In the winter of 1873, gold fever was a sickness that could make a man ignore common sense, the elements, and even the warnings of a Ute chief. That is exactly how Alfred Packer and a group of eager prospectors found themselves at the base of the brutal San Juan Mountains in Colorado, staring up at peaks choked with snow. Chief Urey, a local Ute leader who knew the territory well, had given the bedraggled party food and shelter. He explicitly warned them that the mountain passes were death traps until spring. Most of the men chose to wait out the weather, but 6 of them refused. Driven by the promise of untapped riches, Israel Swan, Shannon Bell, George Noon, Frank Miller, James Humphrey, and their guide, Alfred Packer, marched directly into a historic blizzard on February 9, 1874. Packer had sold himself as an experienced guide who knew the wilderness, but he was mostly a drifter. He was a lanky man with an argumentative streak, a high-pitched voice, and severe epilepsy that had previously gotten him discharged from the Union Army. The others quickly realized Packer was no guide, and they were completely unprepared for the high-altitude winter. For more than 2 months, the mountains swallowed the 6 men. No one knew what was happening in the frozen woods until April 16, 1874, when Packer walked out of the forest alone. He staggered into the Los Pinos Indian Agency, looking remarkably well-fed for a man who had supposedly spent weeks lost in a frozen wasteland. He carried a rifle, a skinning knife, and a story that immediately raised eyebrows. Packer claimed that during a severe storm, he went ahead to scout for food. When he returned, his companions were gone, and he had survived the remaining weeks on roots, rosebuds, and the occasional rabbit. Suspicion deepened when Packer traveled to the town of Saguache and began spending money freely at the local saloon. He possessed wallets, pocket watches, and large amounts of cash that had belonged to the missing prospectors. Realizing the narrative was falling apart, an Indian agent named Charles Adams locked Packer in a cabin for intense questioning. Under pressure, Packer broke down and offered the first of his gruesome confessions. He admitted that the rosebuds and rabbits were a lie. Instead, he claimed that old Israel Swan had died first of exhaustion and starvation, and the others had eaten him to survive. One by one, according to Packer, the men succumbed to the brutal conditions, and each time, the survivors consumed the remains. Finally, it was down to just him and Shannon Bell. Packer claimed that Bell went mad with hunger and attacked him with a hatchet, forcing Packer to shoot him in self-defense. Before he could stand trial for the deaths, someone passed Packer a key, and he escaped into the night. The mystery took a definitive turn just days after his escape. A sketch artist working for Harper's Weekly stumbled upon the campsite where the expedition had met its end. The scene did not match Packer's story of men dying along a trail. 5 bodies lay side by side in a single mountain clearing. Their skulls were crushed, and large sections of flesh had been cleanly sliced away. The site became known as Cannibal Plateau. Packer remained on the run for 9 long years, living under the alias John Schwartz in Wyoming. His luck ran out in 1883 when another member of the original Utah prospecting party recognized his distinct, booming laugh in a saloon. Packer was arrested and brought back to Colorado to face justice. Faced with a trial, Packer changed his story again, providing a second confession. This time, he claimed he left the camp to search for a way out of the mountains. When he returned, he found that Shannon Bell had gone entirely insane, butchered the other 4 men with a hatchet, and was boiling human flesh over a campfire. Packer claimed Bell charged him with the weapon, forcing Packer to shoot him twice in the belly. He admitted he then lived off the remains of the 5 men for weeks before escaping the plateau. The jury did not believe him. Packer was convicted of premeditated murder and sentenced to hang. However, a technicality involving Colorado's transition from a territory to a state overturned the verdict. At his second trial in 1886, he was convicted of 5 counts of manslaughter and sentenced to 40 years at the state penitentiary in Cannon City. Packer served 17 years before a relentless campaign by Denver Post reporter Polly Pry turned public opinion, painting him as a desperate survivor rather than a cold-blooded killer. Governor Charles S. Thomas granted him parole in 1901. Packer spent his final years living quietly near Littleton, Colorado, working as a security guard, and reportedly becoming a strict vegetarian before his death in 1907. Decades later, in 1989, a team of forensic scientists exhumed the remains on Cannibal Plateau to solve the mystery once and for all. They found deep hatchet wounds on the bones of the victims, consistent with a frantic attack, and defensive wounds suggesting they were slaughtered while trying to protect themselves. Curiously, the skull believed to belong to Shannon Bell also showed signs of trauma, but the forensic evidence remained fiercely debated, leaving the ultimate truth of who struck the first blow buried forever in the Colorado dirt. Tune in next week for more scary tales.